What do healthy deer look like now as far as healthy populations? Like, what is a number that you think is a good attainable number for mule deer? I'm going to go ahead and go to you, Andy.
Well, it depends on the herd. I
Right.
mean, we manage based on, we have 51 identified deer herds in Colorado that all have a population objective for the herd management plan that we try and manage too. And it depends on the herd. Some of our herds are doing very well. And some of them, like I mentioned, in the far western tier of the state are not. We have concerns and we're trying to increase those. But what a healthy deer herd looks like to me is you have adult does coming into the winter in good body condition from good summer nutrition, and you have good overwinter, good high fawn weights like Grace mentioned, and you have good overwinter fawn survival because you have adequate nutrition you have good forage, good food on the winter range, and then those fawns recruit to an adult in June on their first birthday. That as a biologist, those are some of the metrics that we, and then adult female survival is very important, but that's usually more consistent unless there's a very bad winter. And I think one of the traps, and this, I'll mention this and we can move into it and discuss it more if there's time, but one of the traps I think that we, for sure as hunters and even biologists fall into is the more is better trap. And we all think that more mule deer is a better situation than fewer. And on the surface, I can see why that's the case. The problem is if you're trying to maximize your number of deer in a given herd, you're working against all those things that I just mentioned. You have limited food availability, and those animals are in poor nutrition. They have lower fawn weights, lower fawn survival, and lower adult survival. And you're in some ways you're kind of working against nature in a way, and it's complicated. It's herd dependent and complicated on what the appropriate management would be. But I think one of the places that we're shooting ourselves in the foot to some degree is by not having doe harvest where we really should be having doe harvest. And that's a societal shift, I think. There's sort of an undercurrent of don't shoot does because we want more deer, when in reality, like I said, I think it's backfiring in some herds. And I'll use in our peak deer harvest in Colorado was 1963, and we don't have the habitat or the conditions that Robby mentioned to ever get back there. We're not trying to get back to 1963, but one of the interesting things that I find about that is in 1963 with our peak deer harvest, we harvested an equal number of does and bucks, roughly 65,000 does and 65,000 bucks. And what that tells me is we were running a deer herd in Colorado that we were running a high nutrition plain, low, younger doe population. So we're running younger does that are more productive, and we're running that herd at below carrying capacity where their body condition is higher and fawn survival and recruitment is higher. And so that's what I see when I just look back at the numbers. And right now, in contrast, we're harvesting very few does, and some herds we haven't harvested a doe in 30 years.
Right.
And guess what? Those herds have not increased.
Yeah.
They're still on the slide.
Yeah.
So that's I think those are some things that we might be trying to get too much out of some of our herds, and we might be better off to lower that population and increase productivity. And oh, by the way, when those fawns recruit, half of those fawns are bucks, and that leads directly to hunting opportunity for buck hunting too. So
yeah, I know it's probably been 20 years. I think since 97 was the last time they issued doe tags in the state of Utah. I mean, that's a long time. And if you look at, obviously there's a lot of differences, but it doesn't seem to affect the whitetail population. I mean, people can, the whitetail doe tags are aplenty. What are your thoughts on some of this as a hunter?
Well, Andy took it right out of my head that this anti-doe harvest thing, just as a mantra, like, no, we can't shoot does, that's going against some of the best biology that's out there in our North American conservation model. And Andy just gave a great example of it. And the last book I put out, I included a chapter from Toby Boudreau, one of your peers, on doe harvest. Now, doe harvest isn't needed everywhere, But if you want to have healthy, quality herds, which most of the people I rub shoulders with, that's what they want. They want quality bucks, quality herds, good production, good fawn recruitment. Well, that doesn't come with a high deer population typically. And that's why sometimes these peaks hurt us, because everybody thinks, oh, I was seeing so many deer and now I'm not seeing very many deer. Yeah, but the buck to doe ratio, which is the guys I run with, that's what we're most interested in. And a lot of time that's influenced by, in part, by doe harvest, because managing under objective slightly will lead to healthier deer. And Andy gave that example of half of those fawns that are born are bucks. And so if we can recruit those for just a few years, most guys, you get bucks to 3 or 4 years old, most guys are really happy. That's where the complaining stops. And then just because of big mule deer behavior, once they hit 4 years old, they just learn how to hide and their survival goes up. And so to just say we're never going to harvest does, I'm with Andy 100%. But if I walk out on the expo floor and start saying that, I'm going to have guys arguing with me in my face, and you don't shoot girls and whatever it is. But that, when Toby wrote that article, it's not a blanket, let's just shoot does. It's like, hey, it's a management tool that once you start getting a deer herd towards its peak, and you bring in a doe harvest, you can protect that herd from a decline, which is always going to come. We know that about deer. They're born to die. Right. These hard winters have been coming and going for longer than we've been here. But if you've got those healthy does, those healthy fawns, we've made that case already, that's what's going to get you out of those valleys of those big declines. And so I'm glad you brought that up, Andy. I think about that stuff all the time. Now, having said that, with where we're at right now in 2026, coming off of the epic winter of 22-23 in certain places in Idaho, yeah, probably not a good time to shoot does. We're still rebuilding. But to me, that's the beauty of it. It's like a biologist should have that ability to say, look, okay, right now we got to build this herd back up. We had a huge decline, and you pull those doe tags back, let that herd recover, but to never put them back in. And the reason they don't come back in, it's almost always social. You go to the fish and game meetings and I can't shoot does. There's still not enough. There was more in 1960. I mean, it's just hamstrings our biologists from being able to make these decisions that really are the best for these herds. And so I'm with you all the way on, Andy. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.